Hello and welcome again to the Wide World of Wargaming, Age of Sigmar podcast. As always, we are your hosts, Alex, John, and Garrett this evening. Jeremy is going to be out. We are going to be talking about the Adepticon Part 2 preview that happened just last weekend, and we are also going to be talking a little bit about deployment in this quarantine era. Of course, not a lot of us are playing games, so now's a good time for us to kind of sit back and review some missions in the game and really kind of talk about what we might want to do in certain deployments. And so we got a couple of different missions today. And as always, we definitely want to find out what's on the workbench, especially with, John right there pouring something real nice. John, what was that?
That, my friend, is a little bit of the Bale Vinny Double Wood, a little 12-year Scotch, matured in two distinct casks. Now, this one we're lucky that our friend Jeremy is not with us tonight, because this is the one where last time I pulled this out, you'll remember he pulled out the 14-year when I had the 12-year out. You know, he was like, "Oh, I just got a, I guess, 2-ups menu when you do that." So I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope you're surviving the next week of stay at home, stay in shelter. I know the wife and I have gone a little stir crazy and then a little beyond stir crazy. It's okay. My cat and dog are keeping me wonderful company. So it's almost like we're around real people. We got out for some good walks and stuff like that. But I have been a hobby maniac this entire week. I've been painting like a madman. I got a bunch of my Primaris army painted. I actually decided, right, that it would be embarrassing for me to go through this entire, for me, it's going to end up being like 6-7 week shut in without having like knocked through a substantial amount of my backlog. So my first goal is to get the entire Primaris army painted. I've got all the foot dudes painted. Now I'm going to do the vehicles next. And then after that, I'm going to dig into the rest of my Nurgle army. And we have to stay inside long enough. We'll see. You know, in previous episodes, as stuff have happened, I've been just be able to reach off screen here and just grab like box after box of unbuilt kits. But if we get stuck inside much longer, that is not going to be happening. Now, besides that, I've actually been playing a little bit of Blood Bowl 2 League on Steam. Our good buddy Michael Birch set up the league with a bunch of local Bay Area guys, as well as Garrett. Garrett's been smashing face in our local league. I've got 4 games in with my Skaven. Game against Mr. Josh Harvey and his Amazonians. Garrett with his Elf Union, you dirty, dirty elves, you. Mr. Russell Worsnip with his Chaos Dwarves. And just earlier today, I played Spencer Mashkuri with his Undead. I don't know if Skaven suck or if I suck at Undead Blood Bowl 2. Maybe a little bit of both, but I have yet to go through a game where I haven't had to use an apothecary to save one of my players from being killed. And a couple times I've used the apothecary and then my players got killed later on anyway. So through casualties and bashing, it's been pretty amazing. I have a new disrespect for rat ogres, as mine most of the time just stands there and growls at me and occasionally flops on the ground and throws a tantrum, refusing to tackle the other players. So Blood Bowl, good fun in the old, sort of old world or alternate world that it is. And that is about all that's been up. Other than that, I got all these notes all over here because we've been talking computers and computer builds off the side. If this was a 40K podcast, I think it would be appropriate for us to talk about unguents and praying to the Omnissiah, and maybe we could talk tech specs, but here in Age of Sigmar, anything above an abacus, and it's out of control. So my friend Garrett, with the fine Middle-earth mural in the background there, what are you up to, my friend?
Well, I'm sitting here with a craft cider I grabbed from the store. It's the 1911 small batch craft cider. And this is a raspberry cider. It's brewed somewhere in New York. It's really cool label. Was a fan. Actually quite tasty. I also grabbed their original flavor, and I think they have a nice blend of different apples from up in New York. And it actually is it's nice and dry, not too sweet, and good. Just a nice, good, solid cider.
Sounds nice.
So for me, well, Mountain Blade is still out. So I'm still playing Mountain Blade Bannerlord.
Wait. I saw that it was an early release, though.
It's in early access. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I did put my eye on it.
Yeah. For people who are interested, if you are not a diehard Mountain Blade fan, it is a game that is most definitely in early access. There are missing features. There are bugs. They've released a patch every day since release. But I'm having a blast because I've logged many hours into Mountain Blade Warband, and it's just really, really refreshing to get a modern take on the game. Definitely noticing all the missing features and I wish I could just do this like you could in Warband. And I'm like, well, obviously you can't because there's all these other things that I can do that you couldn't do in Warband. So they built all those features first. Playing some Blood Bowl 2, as John mentioned. I think my buddy Matt summed it up best that Blood Bowl doesn't try to even it doesn't even think it has balance to the game. It knows it's a completely unbalanced game, and you just go in and do whatever you can. And to your question, is your team bad? From my understanding, the stunty teams like Halflings and Skaven tend to be worse.
Oh,
I mean, they're like the Rudies, I'm sure, right?
There's actually at Blood Bowl tournaments. What happens is they give out different trophies for you can try to win the Stunty Bowl. So you bring a stunty team and you just try to be the best of the stunty players. You know you're not going to win the event because you're playing the awful faction.
So it's you getting your participation trophy.
Yeah, but you're the best of your faction.
The best of the worst.
The best of the worst. And then so you compete where you can compete. So
I guess I should have done a little research going in, but of course I had to play Skaven. It's okay.
Yeah. Playing against you, that was a hilarious game. I think John killed more of his own men than I did.
That's Skaven fashion. Yes. I've never played this game. I know nothing about its mechanics. I just assume.
Yeah, it's Age of Sigmar and football.
Yeah, basically. It's a beautiful, salty game. It's a love-hate relationship. I'm a fan. You can't take it seriously, or else
the graphics are pretty good. I was impressed by all that. And speaking of graphics, you actually talked me into something that I've avoided for half a decade, I think, at this point. And old Garrett got me to download the Tabletop Simulator.
Ooh,
and we went in. We played a game of Othello, which I easily haven't played in more than 2 decades. And of course, he just dominated me there. But even if I was playing every day, it might have been a challenge. I have a suspect that Garrett's pretty good at that game. I saw strategies and stuff. Anyways, outside of that, I got motion sickness pretty instantly playing that game. Within a minute to 2 minutes that we opened up Tabletop Simulator, I was ready to hurl. But Garrett and I kind of worked through it, and what we did was we took and created a background that was a white image and uploaded the white image as the background. So instead of there being a 3D environment, was just a 3D table in front of us. And as soon as we did that, no problems. And so since then, I think you've actually been experimenting with some Age of Sigmar tables and armies, right, Garrett?
Yeah, so I spent a gooder part of last night. Yeah, a gooder part. A gooder part. After we stopped hanging out last night, I spent a good half hour to an hour downloading assets, playing around with them, looking up some tutorials and stuff. And just before the session tonight, I was able to actually set up the table, set up the terrain the way I wanted to, and actually deployed my army and downloaded my army, and I got it all deployed. And so I started playing around with measuring and moving people. And because I'm really itching to start rolling dice, and I'm like, screw it, let's do this Tabletop Simulator thing. I've been talking to a couple of buddies of mine.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna try to play with. Me and John might try to get a game in. We'll just throw up that white background, and maybe by next week we'll get a game or two in, so we can try to actually execute some of the strategies we talk about regularly.
Well, that'd be nice. Maybe
we'll even record it, John, and show people.
We
Show
could
people
stream
what we
it.
do. Yeah.
We could throw it to my YouTube or Twitch channel, all that good
We
stuff.
could.
So very easy.
So yeah, outside of work, I've been playing a lot of Bannerlord, hanging out with the wife, and playing around with Tabletop Simulator. So not a lot of hobby stuff. I mean, I think Jeremy and Alex kind of hit on the head. Without the incentive of a tournament to go to, I just can't get myself to paint an army, and so it's really hard for me.
Really, and I tell you, I guilted myself into some hobby action. Maybe you should try that. Like just start working on the guilt. Like, yeah, man, if I don't get something done while I'm shut in, like I'm just a loser at that point.
I started with that, and then I was like, or I could just play Mountain Blade, or I could just play a fantasy RPG and just have fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I mean, that's the thing, is also one of the things that's really hard for me right now is, like, as soon as we're all done with this, who knows if my army is even going to be valid anymore. And, like, is it going to be a good meta army? Am I going to have to completely shake things up? Am I going to switch back to my painted Sylvaneth? Should I go to my Khorne? Like, I don't know where things are going to be when all this drops. So it's kind of like, I don't really want to put in a whole lot of effort into something that I'm just, like, not going to use. And I don't know.
I hear you, man. Though I'm looking forward to my new elf army. Ooh.
Oh, so you're actually going to pick up the Lumineth?
Every time I look at them, I like what I see more and more, so...
Well, before we get too deep into it, Alex, I know we have all been talking to you about building a computer and stuff, but what do you got going on your workbench other than hammering a computer together?
Yeah, well, the computer is hammering it out. I got the motherboard on its way and the video card. I pretty much have everything but the power supply that I've already chosen for myself, and I'll probably.
Do you have a case?
I have a case picked out.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, so I have a lot of things and a lot of shopping carts.
Nice.
But kind of nailing down things. I wanted to double and triple check everything to see if I truly wanted it or not. In terms of all the other products, comparatively, like, the GPU, for instance, I had something that I was right about to pull the trigger on. Oh my God. Okay, show's over, everyone. Good night. Have a good night. We're done here. Someone's gonna be very unhappy when they
If anybody is unaware, that is our executive producer.
Yes.
In a wonderful photo taken. Oh God, is that like 6 years ago now?
That's new Vince.
Yeah, so that must be a 6-year-old picture.
It is about 6 years old. Yeah. I think it might be 4 or 5 actually, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, didn't mean to derail you.
No, not at all.
I'll take the pressure off.
No, it's fine. Honestly, it's traumatic. But hey, he's more than happy to join us. He's not playing this game, but he'll someday, I'm sure. So I got that all sorted out for the most part, and I do want to try Tabletop Simulator once I get my computer up and running, because of the fact that I don't have any hobby projects right now. I mean, like, if I truly wanted to do the kind of final 5% of my OBR army, I could, but I just don't want to right now, and I'm not going to be able to display board for the same reasons that we shared week and week again. Quarantine doesn't really help with me wanting to get anything else painted. So that's
plus, if you're short of that one item, you guys are building your display board, and you're like, oh wait, I just need one more dowel.
Exactly. So right now, my hobby, what was on my workbench, was constant check and double check, because computer parts are like a complete foreign language to me. So, it's been like 15 to 20 years since I built a computer with my father as a kid. So, like, things have changed. Things have changed a little, but enough for me to be like, I don't know what these numbers are now. Yeah. I know what this, and this is in terms of this, exact what it is, but I don't know anything else past that. So you guys and Jeremy and a few others, you guys have been really, really helpful for me to figure this out. So thank you. But
hopefully you're not suffering from too many cooks and too many input.
No, truly, actually, surprisingly, I haven't.
That is surprising.
I was actually expecting that, because I've hit up like eight different people, and for the most part, I haven't heard conflicting information. I've heard either neutral opinions or like distinct opinions that everyone else has agreed on, which is wonderful.
Cool.
But on my workbench, besides that, I have some iced coffee and some Pendleton that I was gonna put in there. So we'll add a little bit of Pendleton to that iced coffee.
Wait a second. The decanter is already empty?
Yes, it is, sir.
Oh man, you are sheltering in place a little harder than I am right now.
Hey, man,
You getting ready for that wedding, buddy?
I mean, I'm gonna have to.
How is that Pendleton? Is it pretty good?
It's good. It's good. It's good with coffee. I actually really like it with coffee. Not my favorite thing straight up anyways. Yeah, so this one's good. But I do have one thing. You know, a few episodes ago, our listeners heard Jeremy recommend an army to me. And, you know, we built 1,000 points. And I had told him time and time again, both on the recording and in our personal chats and our team chats, I don't have any more Tzeentch. I won a couple of boxes of Tzeentch during LVO, but I didn't have any more. So I just kept on telling him, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, oh, you'll just borrow one of my armies, because of course he's got a Tzeentch army. But I actually realized that I forgot to sell one of my Tzeentch boxes. So I have 10 Horrors, a Herald, 3 Screamers, 3 Flamers, and a Burning Chariot.
So just buy 2 more of those, and you'll have the start of it.
I still have the same problem I mentioned before. Both on a thematic scale, I just always like playing undead armies. I just always like playing these like lawful evil armies that are not like, ooh, I'm a demon, I'm edgy. But also like I don't like the models themselves. Like I'll do it. Like if Jeremy forces my hand, I'll fucking do it.
Well, if you make Jeremy build and paint you an army,
no,
you're like,
he doesn't clean his mold lines. Yeah, so that's not happening. I will be building and painting these if I'm going to run the army.
We must recognize that Alex is actually a skilled hobbyist.
I'm an okay
much experience.
I'm average plus, I'll call it.
I'm very experienced, but it's been a lot of bad habit experience. So I'm just a very veteran bad hobbyist.
See, so you can do things fast then, at least.
Yeah,
I do things fast, not well.
See, I got shamed into oblivion by Israel, and so like learning the hobby, I did take a few notes from his book, not all of them, because it's not happening.
I brought some half-painted models into a shop once, and some people were like, because I had my painted corn stuff, and I brought them to the shop, like, oh yeah, Garrett, your stuff looks really good. Like, you know, you're a great painter. I've always had people compliment my like corn army, and I'm sitting there like, okay, buddies. And then I brought some half-painted corn models. And they're like, Garrett, do you not prime your models? I'm like, not
wait,
always.
Hold on. Whoa, Garrett, do you not prime your models before painting them?
Not always.
So but that preview. Look at the segue. Here's the segue right here.
So this is like I'm sorry. This is like going commando all the time.
Yeah.
This is like having chronic diarrhea and going commando all the time. You are fucking swimming in dangerous waters, my friend.
My whole corn army is unprimed. Like, whenever you see it, the whole army was painted unprimed.
I'm sure.
Be warned in the future when he sells this army, listeners.
Yeah, what the fuck, man?
Alex, you know me. I'm like, not only am I dedicated to removing mold lines and clean gluing and all said modeling techniques.
Yeah.
I'm put a lot of effort into priming. You know, I have a private stash of Orchard Supply primer that I've been carefully doling out over the years. I have my special priming boards, my priming station in the yard, special techniques. Like when you prime, for listeners, you know, like people think you stand your model, but when you're going to prime, actually what you do is you put the model face down and you prime everything you can with the model face down. You get the angles, you get down, you get all that stuff. And then you let that dry. and now you flip it over, and when you put the primer on the face, most of the primer has been applied. So when you're putting the primer on the like chest and face details, you can go with a much lighter coat. And when you go to prime a model, you always focus on the deepest pockets first, because those are the hardest areas to hit. So like the face will always get covered. You don't have to worry about shooting the face. So you shoot the armpit, and then the face gets taken care of along the way.
Yeah. See, I'm not as complex with you. I still do the old school, how I did when I was a kid, just like go outside and take the spray can and do it in certain angles. And with all the OBR stuff and quite frankly, when the night stuff, when it all gets sorted out, a lot of sticky tack and a lot of sticking things and hitting things in different angles, because everything I've been building lately has been done in pieces for the most part. So yeah, no, I get that. I'm not as complex, but I mean, whatever gets the job done, as long as you're fucking priming.
Right.
Whatever gets the job done. Not priming also gets the job done.
Anyways, now that we got all that squared away,
then he gives up that he actually paints with Vallejo colored primers.
No.
Hey!
Now he's gonna tell me he doesn't actually paint with paints. He like takes a Sharpie or like a fabric paint pen and only paints 100% that way. Like
no, I've seen Garrett like if you didn't know it wasn't primed, you would look at the models and you would go, those are very nicely done.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
That's why I know that when people say that, like, you clearly haven't looked at the model. Like, it doesn't look bad. It looks fine from 3 feet away.
It was like an LVO. I was really excited and thought that my army would look really, really nice. And it was definitely a like tabletop standard. But like I was like checking bonus points for like certain details. And one of the judges, he comes by and he's just like, okay, I really like the eye effects on your Mortek guard. And I'm like, yeah, like the characters have them, they have them, all the monsters, like every unit has like the eye glow. He's like, he looks over, he goes, and he looks up to me, looks me straight in the eye and goes, well, not all the Mortek. And I'm like, yeah, not all the Mortek. Oh boy. But that's enough. We don't have to talk about it. We will just shame you later for, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Anyways, Garrett, prime your fucking models. That being said,
so here's I can sum up both of our opinion about priming models in one succinct background. Something fishy if you're not priming your models there, Garrett.
Fishy, God damn it. Okay. Well, we got some things that we want to cover here, and the first thing is going to be that Adepticon preview part 2. And it says it's specifically titled Heroes, Heretics, and a Squirrel. The fun thing was at the very end of this preview, they announced that there was a preview that no one else knew that was going to be going on the 18th. So it'll just be coming on 2 Saturdays from now, and that'll be a third preview that we weren't anticipating. But we found out a little bit more, like we talked about, John. You were talking a little bit about elves, a little bit about pointy elves, and there's a really big change here. And they're doing the Sisters of Battle route with their box set. The box set is going to be an all-inclusive kit that includes a 3-inch marker, or a 3-inch game aid, a bunch of punch-outs, cards, dice, and a unit of the spearman, unit of cav, and it looks like a hero. So that's big. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I'm excited. When I looked at this set, to me it reminds me a lot of the Sisters of Battle set that came up with around Christmas time.
Yeah,
it came with the book, came with the dice, came with this one has a little bit less I would say variety of miniatures than that one had. So I think I would want more, I guess is the best way that I might describe that. But outside of that, I think that here, I got it right here. There we go. Oh, perfect. Okay, so we can see here, can I do this right? Oh, there we go. So we got the guys on the spears. Like as soon as I saw that with the cavalry behind them, I was like, okay, I'm in. I like it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched the little video and stuff that came with it. It was kind of cute, say, can you include a hero made of light? We got you covered. Hold my beer.
Oh yeah,
They got this guy.
the hero with no arm, or the hero the armor that's just floating.
Yeah.
That's the hero that comes with it.
Yes. Yeah, you see him right there, behind my head.
Oh, he's not in that initial image.
Oh, he's not? Oh, what's that guy
No.
there? Oh, I thought that was him. Oh, okay.
That's the
Never mind.
squad leader.
Ah, okay, never mind. Well, he's not as cool as I thought then.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as like the models, it feels like it's just to start collecting box, like with dice, tactical gauge cards, and a codex.
Yeah, the tactical
So-
gauge is kind of a bonus. Like
Yeah,
you can't have enough of those. I don't know how many you have. I have
I'm
a
up to
few.
4 or 5 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have enough. I got like 9 9-inch sticks and like 5 3-inch sticks, and I'm down to 1 6-inch stick because I've gotten rid of a bunch of mine. I gave them away because they're like, people, you need tactical gauges.
Yep. I really like it. They have the tactical gauge, and it is a punch out, and then it's because it's the same background as the kind of token kit, which has several different tokens, a lot of different headdress tokens, a mountain looking one, and then like 24 random looking ones that are all the same, and then a 9-inch marker. But I thought that it was really interesting that their unit cards that come with it, they look to be the size of normal cards. They don't look to be the size of the cards that are in the typical sets. When you buy like cards, they're the ones that you normally buy. They're like 6 inches by 4 inches.
Yeah.
And these ones, they're looking, when you see the image of the dice, which by the way, the dice are similar to Idoneth. They have that same kind of symbol, the 6's symbol. It's a very similar Idoneth symbol because the elf language is all very similar. And so the 6 pip is the symbol. The 1 pip is not a rando symbol. It is just a 1 pip. And it's see-through, but it's like dark yellow acrylic. So it's not the most like shame on Games Workshop for making usable, action dice.
I was about to say is that all these people on Twitter are in an uproar. How dare you make usable dice?
They've done better. They've done worse. That's all I can say is GW has a long scattered history with making dice, and they could come out with the actual best, clearest dice set in the world, and it still wouldn't be enough to overcome some of the dice that are in my collection from GW. And I'll always point back to the one I got that's my Space Marine Commander dice that has a skull on the 1 and a different skull on the 6. Get the heck out of here.
It's truly a sight to behold.
Yeah.
But, Garrett, do you want to talk a little bit about the rule that came with them that they also previewed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the new rule is what's it called? Lightning Strike or something like that. Basically, it's a rule in its simplest form is anytime you pick a unit, you get to pick 2 units in a row to attack rather than alternating with So you pick 2, your opponent picks 1, you pick 2, your opponent picks 1. So that's the base. That's kind of what the rule is. And
is that their faction rule? Like that's their...
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Or is that a command ability?
It looks to be an allegiance ability.
Yeah, it looks to just be a battle trait of the allegiance. So all Lumineth, that's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Will have this rule. So there has been. So sadly, Jeremy isn't here because Jeremy. Yeah. So the plan, so we were talking earlier, and Jeremy brought up the point of, so what happens if you have one guy that has always strike first? You get to have 2 people go into always strike first. And I mean, reading this rule like right off the bat, I honestly didn't even bother to even think about that because like that is clearly not how it's intended. And anybody who it's meant to. You don't use this rule until after the beginning of the combat phase. And
maybe.
Is that what realm is where that's a command ability for the realm?
The realm of light.
The realm of light. See? Seems very intended, actually.
But, I mean, personally, I feel like this is going to be a rule that was not meant to be part of the always strike first category. So there's not going to be a strike at the start of the combat phase. And it's most likely going to be errated or FAQ'd or any way to be you don't use it. If you have one guy strike at the start of the combat phase, he doesn't get to allow a second unit to come with him. And if people try to play it that way, you're going to be very disappointed once the FAQ does come out. So, like,
maybe
don't bother.
Maybe
like, just don't bother. I don't know. Like, this goes towards like people. If you if there are two possible ways to interpret a rule, like if you could easily say, yes, it could go this way or that way, the language is too vague, always go with the weaker interpretation, because when the FAQ errata does come out, you're either pleasantly surprised because you got a buff, or you're playing it the right way. Like your army never gets nerfed then.
Oh,
Like,
that's fair. That's fair.
Like you can't be mad that your army got nerfed because you weren't playing it one way and then got downgraded.
Yep.
You just play it the worst way. Then when the FAQ does come out, you will go, oh shit, I get a buff because I've been playing it wrong is the worst way.
That's
or
exactly.
I get to play this. I've been playing it this way, so my tactics I've been generating this whole time ahead of time, I just get to keep playing with those tactics. So if you try to abuse gimmicks, you'll be punished. And GW has shown over and over again. I see all these people who always come out and be like, oh, they nerfed this army. No, they nerfed this gimmick.
Yep,
that's true.
This army wasn't nerfed. They just decided that this gimmick was not something they wanted in the game. And since people were only abusing a single gimmick, yeah, you lost your gimmick. They don't like gimmick swing games. They like.
I mean, if you call Plague Monks a gimmick, I guess I agree with you.
I mean, and this is just the thing, you know. It's.
Well, I mean, actually, that's a good point, John. As far as like, are Plague Monks a gimmick? Well, Plague Monks upping their cost. All they did was like a 10-point bump to their cost because
40 points.
Yeah, 40 points for a unit, not 40 points for 10. So it's like, bumping a unit up by a few points was just to prevent people from spamming the single unit. So if everyone was taking only that unit, it was like, cool. If you want to take 4 units of 40, well, your army just went up 160 points.
You're literally supposed to do that. They literally made the point cost so that you could not run the Pestilence army the way it was designed out of the Battle Tome, out of the starter kit. So, I mean, there's that.
I think that this might be a discussion for another day when we start to actually get this stuff going. Now,
but yeah, so the Lightning Strike rule, it's I actually really like it. It's a new mechanic. Honestly, it's not that abusable. I mean, I've heard people go, "Oh, it's not very powerful. Forget about it." Yeah, it isn't very powerful, but you know what? It's cool. Like, it's not strike at the start of the combat phase. It's not something that is super abusable, game-changing. It's literally just, hey, it's a cool rule that when you have 4 units, your opponent has 4 units, you get to strike with 2, they strike with 1, you get to strike with 2, and then they strike with their 3. And it's just nice.
It'll be nice late game, too, when you have decimated units. So you have, like, 2 smaller units that now kind of combine to equal the size of an attack you might want to create against a unit. So I can see a lot of places where it'll be, like you said, not game-shattering, but a strong enough mechanic. I'll put it on the same order as Ideneth Tides Table kind of mechanic.
Yeah.
Strong and definite cases where it could be really strong. But for the most part, decent, you know.
The other thing you mentioned that I thought about was that you can use units in conjunction, like decimated units, but honestly, it also allows you to actually play maybe an MSU-style army without being severely punished. Because one of the things about Age of Sigmar is because all combat is alternating, while as opposed to 40k, all chargers go first. Playing MSU can be very punishing because you throw 3 guys into combat versus their 1. You strike with a small unit, then their 1 big unit wipes out the other 2. But now you actually have 2 units attacking at a time, so you can actually have little blobs of guys that can kind of be like a cavalry supported by a spearman or something like that. So I can see that being beneficial. Just something I like the rule. It's not overly powerful, so I'm happy with it. I'm not upset. I like it. Just I hope people don't try to do stupid stuff with it.
But you can assume people will do stupid stuff as far as that goes. So I mean, I think that's pretty much it for the elves. I mean, we have yet to see what they're really about. We have some good teasers. We got the cool cows. We got the cool hammers. I don't have Jeremy here to poo-poo on my love of the elven cows and the cool horns that are coming out. No. And, I myself don't know much about this Sons of Behemoth Titan faction, but I saw some buzz online and people seem to know all about it. So what do you guys know about the Sons of Behemoth?
Well, the Behemoth is back when AoS finally had like match play rules. They had the Realm Gate Wars, and the Realm Gate Wars right before that, there was like a little book about the God Beasts, and there was like a whole campaign thing about that. And God Beasts, like in Age of Sigmar, when Sigmar's like clinging to the core of the world that was like this, Astaroth, which is like the main god for Seraphon now, is a God Beast, and like he caught Sigmar in the core of the world that was, and like brought him to Azur, and that's where the realm of Azur kind of creates the Age of Myth, and everything just spreads from there. But there are multiple god beasts throughout, like Azur. Some of them are dead, some of them are alive. Some of them fuse into gods that are like Warhammer Fantasy gods and become something different. Archaon tries like enslaving a bunch of them, and it doesn't really work. But one of them is Behemoth, and they're not all the same. They're not all like a silver light dragon like the Seraphon one is, or Dracoth or whatever his name is. And yeah, he's just supposed to be a giant, like a giant, and he's supposed to be the father of all giants. And you would assume if they made a tabletop model of Behemoth, he'd be 6 feet tall. Like
it would be a big foot on the table.
Yeah, it would just be a foot on the table. Yeah, it would just be gigantic.
Small child. Just a small child.
No, like bigger than the small. It would just be like obscenely large. Like there's a image in the God Beast thing where you see Archaon, and he's on his beast, and like you see the image of Archaon, and he like is like this big, and then the rest of the photo is the face of the God Beast. It's like an example. So gotcha. and that's Archaon like on his mount, right? Which on the tabletop is like that tall. Behemoth is supposed to be the kind of god beast that spawned gargants or giants in Age of Sigmar. And I will say something really interesting here, because obviously it's just going to be way bigger giants, and it's going to be a faction of giants. And in that video, which we can talk about, I'll definitely see what your guys' thoughts are. It sounds like they clearly named 3 separate units that are going to be in the book and possibly expose the models. But before even looking this up, I had actually looked a few weeks ago, because we all knew that Sons of Behemoth were coming around.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I wanted to see the models and size comparisons to kind of see where things might come, because we know that it's probably going to be like a Knight Titan equivalent style thing in Age of Sigmar. Maybe like 4 or 5 models max, with a bunch of cool allegiance abilities, hard to kill, but it's going to be fun as hell to take them out. Some people are going to complain about that, but fuck them.
You're like a true Imperial Knight player.
Truly.
I like Chaos Knights.
So I have, a Knight Titan is about 7 inches tall, as an example. The Cerastus Knight.
A Knight Titan, do you mean?
A Questoris Knight model in Games Workshop. Yeah, a normal Knight model chassis.
40K, yeah.
Is about 7 1/4 inches. And I did all this research ahead of time, but I've also known that for a while. But so it's about 7.5 inches. We know that. The Cerastus Knights are a lot taller. They're usually 10 to 12, maybe sometimes 14 inches. The standard Games Workshop Gargant model, not very tall, about 4 inches tall. He's really? A big boy. He's 4 to 5 inches tall. He's not super big, and he's only on like the heavy cavalry bases, or like he's on a
Tree Lord. He's on a Tree Lord base.
I don't think he's on a Tree Lord base. I think he's slightly on the one smaller than that. The one that the Stormcast,
the heavy cav base.
The heavy cav bases. They're on those, so they're not that big. But the Forge World Knight. We're not going to be doing a green screen tonight.
The Bone Grinder Giant. He's massive. He's like 12 inches tall.
Exactly. The Bone Grinder, he's actually 9 inches tall. And if
his mace makes him 12 inches tall or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And if you've ever played if you've ever played a game and you have your measuring tape out, or if you have your 9-inch gauge out, you'll find out very quickly that 9 inches is taller than most of the models in the game, easily. And so, this is if they're anywhere close to his size, but wider, that'd be huge, because, like, again, 9-inch Gargant, but like he's not all that wide. He's got a very like weak
lanky
pose.
Body. Yeah, the Bone Grinder Giant is very lanky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm just picturing. I'm sorry, Gary. I'm just picturing like an army of like 4, or like you said, 4 or 5 of these dudes on big giant bases, just wrecking. I'm in, man. I'm saying, the day they come out, that evening I have a painted army.
Yeah, I'm actually like, for as far as 40K goes, like comparing them to the Imperial Knight Army, I actually really like the Knight Armatures, the little dudes, and I hope they do something like that for Gargants, or maybe there's some slightly smaller, maybe like giant trolls or something, like just really big trolls or something like that they can have. Because I like the idea of, like, you got your big hulkers, but then you got the little hulkers, and they're way bigger than a normal guy. Like, they're like 6 wound, 8 wounds little dudes that can like run around, and they're like squads of 3 of them or something. I like that idea. So you have some big guys and some little guys mixing it up.
Are these
Now,
like giant, like toddlers, like
yeah,
babies? Like there's like toddler giants running around, got a big rattle.
I don't know what the justification for it will be. But
Okay.
Just from a just like army composition standpoint, the idea of just 4 big dudes sounds boring to me. I would like the idea of like maybe a couple little squads of 3 in addition to your giant dudes. I don't know. That would be me. That's what I would like to see out of a guard, because it's just like 4 big dudes. Single models have always performed poorly in Age of Sigmar. Like, these Squad Raiders have done well with the new 10 model rule.
I just want to throw one thing out there too before we get too far. I see that Sons of Behemoth is already a battalion inside of the app.
They're not very. It's not a very good battalion.
What is that for?
I also don't think it has points. So
well, that's for God Beasts. The book God Beasts.
Yeah, it doesn't have points. It doesn't have points.
So does that mean? Oh, it doesn't have points. Oh,
which means it's not available for match play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is something though that someone out there knows a lot more about this. Like, this has been around before, right?
This has been
around.
The God Beast book has been around. It's like the moment people saw Sons of Behemoth, they're like, "Oh, I know all about God Beasts." Like, yeah. So there are people who know a lot about this faction. So
well, we're gonna have to see where things are for them. Obviously, we're gonna find out more information, hopefully 2 Saturdays from today. It's I understand the low model count, but I mean, they already did it with Beast Claw Raiders. I would be very foolish if I were thinking that we would not have the ability to, have them count as like 20 models or something. But John does lead us into our next thing here. Right now, we want to actually talk about, of course, the deployments. So bear with me one moment here. As
John just forcing these new topics.
Yeah, I know.
I like it, man.
I like it.
And for those of you that have stuck with audio only to this point, do know that we've been posting our show over on our YouTube channel. A little bit hard to find. It is Wide World Wargaming over there, right? Rather than Wide World of Wargaming. But we'll put links, and Alex will post links when he posts links to the show as well. But this would be the good time for you to switch over to the YouTube video, and we're going to take a visual look at some deployments. Alex has some great visual aids for us, and then we're going to mark it up and do cool stuff like that.
Yeah. So, of course, this first one, we all as a group wanted to talk about deployments, and we wanted to talk about which ones might be a little bit more difficult to try to prepare and deploy for. And we all got together and we finalized them, and we're going to start off with Duality of Death. Now, with Duality of Death, of course, this one's a really strange one because it's very easy to mess this one up. And I'm trying to make sure that we have our images here that fit in a way. And you know what? This works fine.
This one looks great. This is perfect.
Yeah. So, this one, you guys definitely jump in and annotate, but, there is a lot of differences between 2018 and 2019. John, if you were to play this, when you are regularly deploying for Duality of Death, can you tell us or show us a little bit about what your usual thought process is, especially with one of your more popular armies?
Sure. Well, of course, I'm generally going to play this with Skaven. Let's face it. I've played pretty much the entire last season with my Skaven army. And when it comes to Duality of Death, we got to remember that only hero and battle line can score in this mission, and how long you hold the objective is going to determine how many points that you actually scored on this particular one. So I myself, playing Skaven, am usually going to start off with some gnaw holes. So here I can take advantage of the gnaw holes, and I'm usually going to put like one gnaw hole into play over here, and then one gnaw hole into play over here. And then after that, I have a decision, and this is kind of a little bit of my decision based on terrain and what kind of army my opponent has. If my opponent has some units, especially some bigger units, I might actually throw a gnaw hole right here, and that's going to bait them over. Like, this is totally useless, but I tell you what, if you don't do something to block this off, I'm going to jump some kind of a unit in behind your army and smash you up. The other alternative for me is to just go ahead and put one of the gnaw holes over on the side. And the basic thought process is that I'm going to take and I'm going to actually go, and let me just switch here. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. I'm going to set up my guys all around. I'm usually going to set up, some battle line right up here. This is probably going to be like some clan rats are pretty good right up front right here. Maybe a 20 or a 40. And the nice thing about clan rats is when you run them, they move an extra 2 inches. So when you run, you're guaranteed to get a minimum of a 9-inch move, right? And so we've got our, zone around the objective. I guess it's going to be about that big. I probably should use a circle. And so I can guarantee that my clan rats are going to get up here. And what I'm usually going to do is, depending on my opponent, I'm going to actually go in and I'm just going to put a toe into one of these objectives. So like maybe they've set up something really strong on this side that can just smash me. I might have one little clan rat sitting in here. And then over on this side, I'm going to move that stuff up. I'm going to set my monks up and kind of set up to have a nice big wall. And maybe this is my opponent's weaker side over here. And so that's kind of how I'm playing. Now, if my opponent, like myself, has an army that can play strong on 2 fronts, that's where the gnaw holes can come in, is I can set up with a nice balanced deployment, but actually after the first turn, I start shuffling units through this gnaw hole, and all of a sudden I have a lot more force on one side that I can use to break through and keep him off this objective. One of the things that I think people need to pay attention to on this particular mission is that you do score points based on how many turns you actually hold each individual objective. So if you can grab one of the objectives and hold it the entire game, and then only one time prevent your opponent from actually taking the other objective or gain 1 point off the other objective, then you're going to sit ahead on this mission and all. And this is one of my personal favorite missions. It plays so well to the strengths of the Skaven. And so that is basically what I'm going to do on this one. Now, this particular mission has a little bit of a quirk to it. And Garrett, I know you're well aware of the quirk in this particular mission. Did they fix that? Did they fact that thing? Or is that still a problem, shall they say?
So, yeah. No, the true answer is no, and this is a quirk for all hero-based objectives. So places of arcane power, duality of death, and 3 places of power all have it. So basically, so the thing is that you capture the objective. A unit holds an objective if they made a move of some sort onto the objective. So if you have a teleport ability, you can't just like say, I have guys right here, or let's say you're Stormcast. You can't just deep strike some Stormcast on there and bam. Nope, you don't score it because you didn't make a move. Setups are not a move. And so you actually have to like run a guy on here, or so you got to run a guy or move a guy. So it's either a normal move, which is in the movement phase, so run. A normal move that is not a retreat move specifies. You can't retreat onto them. Or a charge move or a pilot move. One of those 3 moves, and that is how you actually can score these. The thing is that they fixed it where if you leave the objective, you no longer score it. They used to be, they forgot to have the language where if you are no longer within 3 inches of the objective. It is a 3-inch objective, which I will say, so the circles are much maybe smaller than John originally had.
Yep.
They're probably more around the lines of about this big. If you leave within 3 inches, you no longer score it. If you make a move farther than 3. But that's the thing, is they did say make a move farther than 3 inches away. So if you make a pilot move, a charge move, normal move, or any actual move, they don't specify. But if you teleport off the objective, so you can have a hero move, run up, teleport to this corner over here, he technically holds it. And one of the big things about these is once a unit has claimed the objective, that unit holds the objective until he either dies or moves away from it. So no one can just steal that objective from him. It's not like normal things where the person with the most models takes it. It's just, I hold it until you kill me or I leave. And so if he's just on that objective and then teleports over here and then you just screen his ass, then, he's holding that objective for game. And
yep. Or that's where if you have durable battle line, that's where they're really strong too.
Yeah. Well, it's easier to do the get on and teleport with a hero. Fortunately, events like LVO have house ruled that to eliminate that gimmick. And I would hope that by the summer FAQ, GW will just straight up errata that gimmick away. So like LVO did it, a tournament that I was going to run, we were going to house rule it that just says at the end of every phase, if you aren't still within 3 inches, you no longer control it. So that's the gimmick that John was referring to. As far as some of the strategies I have for this mission, so key things to watch out for is you have this line here. So I'm gonna be player B because I'm facing this right now. So if you are player A, these are two very important lines because as John mentioned, you can throw a gnaw hole right here, or any ambush mechanic in general. Legion of Night, Beast of Chaos, many others. I know that they are. I'm just blanking off the top of my head. Can just put they can come in right here and then take 9-inch charges right into your back line. Can be very devastating. Alternatively, though, you can create kind of some baits. You can kind of like create a wall like right there or right there. And so they're able to come in like over here, but you're going for the objective. So if you have just your screen set up to just block whatever is in these zones, then they can't come in here. But you also have to worry about coming in from right here and from right here. So you really have to be careful with screening because your territory is very limited in this one, which does also go into account with your terrain features. Many terrain features have to be within your terrain, with your territory, like the corn one, the flesh eater course one. They have to be wholly within your territory. And as you notice, the territories themselves are tiny. So terrain can make a huge impact on this mission and actually bottleneck people. Like there's a big terrain feature right here or right here.
Oh, yeah.
You end up having only these, let me get a different color. You only have these little zones right here for deployment to try to get to this objective. So you have to be very careful with how terrain is placed on the map. And if there's no templating on how the events are doing terrain, to try to not zone these out, there's more random placement. Picking sides can be very important just to avoid those bottlenecks. As far as actual mathematical measuring, so the distance between this point and this point right here is just over 9 inches. So it's going to be like 9 point whatever. It's exact. It's just 9 inches exactly.
Yes.
So you will need 10 inches of movement to get there. Effectively, is what it's going to be. Because to get from this point to the peak here to the peak here is exactly 9. To make that exact 9-inch movement is infinitesimally small. So basically, you're going to be at 9,000,001. So you need 10 inches of movement. So you have a 6-inch move unit, you need a 4-inch run to make there. If you have a 5-inch move unit, you need a 5-inch run to make it. So
Yep, those clan reps need a 2-up on that run.
Yeah. So you have to be very careful about what units you want to put on there to make sure they have the speed to do it. And also then what units you put on there. As John mentioned earlier, there's durable battle line or heroes. So for example, in the Cities of Sigmar list, Phoenix Guard, fantastic unit to toss on there. Because they will just get on there and survive forever. Because you get one toe in Phoenix Guard on that objective, and the whole unit will hold it until you don't have one guy within 3 inches, or the whole unit is dead. Phoenix Guard, Hearthguard Berserkers, they'll survive forever. Some other pitfalls. So that's the other thing about this mission, I think, is you have to be very careful about unit synergy. Because you have to split your forces if you want to effectively get both objectives. And since there's only 2 objectives, as John mentioned, if one player holds one objective for the whole game and gets 1 point on the other objective, they can't lose. Like, the only way to combat your opponent holding one objective for the whole game is to hold the other objective for the whole game and be a point ahead of them. So you're either going to have to push people off objectives or get on one of the objectives as early as possible, or you're going to need a combination of both. So actually, this mission going first and jumping on those objectives early is very important, and making sure you have a unit that can survive.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big one in this, is being willing to go first and then being able to survive the double turn while you're hanging out there.
Now, I will say, all of your guys' points are very, very important here. And I think that something that's really important to play around with is trying to make sure that you can properly protect the units that are going to be able to score, of course, while also making sure that you can, of course, get onto the objective when you can. Now, going first and second is going to play a really, really big, really big role in what we're going to end up doing here. So, let's say that there's no bottlenecking terrain on the board, and let's say I'm playing against a Skaven player. I will say, if I were to be player A, for instance, I would still put, in say an OBR army, I would still put, we're gonna not do that here. We're gonna basically put, a hero, like a fast hero right here, but a big unit of Mortec right there. I'll still put, say another hero, maybe a bigger, faster hero right here. Put a small unit of Mortec on the sides if there's, say, a Nahul or something that I want to get rid of, and then put maybe like an elite unit right here, so that we have kind of like a massive people right on one side, and then the other side's kind of got a little bit more of an elite angle, which is kind of difficult, in an army like OBR that plays an easier role. But I'll say, when I'm actually playing this mission, especially against an army that...
No, wait. When you take your crawlers, do you put them both on one side, or do you split them in this scenario?
I'm gonna pretend like you didn't say anything here. I will say, though, if I were to play with my Night Haunt, for instance, it actually is a very, very different game. With Night Haunt, you do play a lot more ambush tactic-y, but like you guys talked about earlier, in order to score on this objective, on the objectives, you can't just teleport onto them. So you have to be very careful, especially as a Night Haunt player or people who are deep striking. And if I were to play against a guy who does put his Nahul, say, in the middle, what I tend to do is I tend to bait a little bit and really try to almost go for an area denial. I'll have, for instance, maybe a Chain Rasp unit right here, a little farther away. And then, some heroes that I know that can score that are a little faster over here, maybe on one side, or, out of range of any sort of ranged abilities, either or, unless they have an equal healthy spread of ranged weapons, which, if we were to play, say, a specifically Skyr player, they might not always have that type of, nice ranged ability on either side of their deployment.
Yeah, they're probably going to have strength on one side, right?
Yeah, well, on the other side, I'll generally bait a little bit if there's a side that I know can handle whatever can show up, I'll actually just put like a unit of chain wraps really weak just by themselves over on one side, and then put a couple of heroes and some of my more elite units over on the front row, especially they can
sorry to interrupt, Alex. I just want to say before you go on, that actually brought up an idea of knowing. You're saying like certain armies are going to have strength on one side. This mission in particular, because a lot of missions I actually don't care what my opponent does. I have the same deployment every single time. Yeah. This mission you can't. You actually have to alternate deploy, make sure you see where your opponent's going, because if you can out deploy your army, your opponent being like, oh, well, he's going to put his Storm Fiends over there. So my unit that doesn't want to get shot, well, I'm going to put him over there. I'm going to, like, they'll put the Storm Fiends over here. I'm going to put my target that doesn't want to get shot over there. And that's kind of what these guys are talking about, is that this is a mission that you can very much counter deploy your opponent and be very tactical in the way you do that. So I just wanted to bring that point up before we moved on. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, no, I was pretty much done.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's something that's really important here.
That's a great point, though, as you put it there, Garrett. This is actually one of those few missions where you actually end up with a very cagey, alternating back and forth deployment. I know that when my armies lined up, I got that. I wish Jeremy was here for this too. Jeremy, where are you? I need like a Jeremy little icon that I can hold up and be him.
Where's our French overlord?
Yeah, where's our guy? But anyways, so I take my Vermin Lord Warp Seer, and I've got him, and people are looking like, okay, what side is he going to put that on? Where's that Screaming Bell going to go? Like, these are things that are like going to heavily affect how my opponent and where they want to put something, whether they want to avoid those or whether they want to zoom in and take those down real quick too.
Yeah, actually, another point is that I like to play a lot of ambush armies, Living City, Legion of Night, where you come in from board edges. I probably would actually really like Night Haunt, where I just have freedom to just deploy half my army anywhere. And you don't only look at this little zone right here. It's very tempting to come into your opponent's line, but like, for example, with like Living City, you can come in right here. Like you could deploy like a whole army right here, come in on this edge, move on, shoot, and then move back on. You can kind of play the long con, coming in from these side edges and maybe having the whole battle. Like you deploy your whole army over here, so the whole battle's taking place over here. And then you kind of ambush your army on later and just kind of like sneak onto this guy or deploy an overwhelming ambush force to clear off your opponent's weak flank or something like that. So this is the one that deployment tricks matter a lot.
Absolutely.
You can really, like, Night Haunt honestly does well here. Being able to deploy like a big force right in the middle that can just threaten both forces, like 20 Bladegeist Revenants or something.
Well,
being able to threaten both.
Quite frankly, our good friend Cody from the podcast or fellow Corsair who plays Flesh Eater Courts, he actually beat me in a game. He was very excited to do so. But we had played a game where I had a bunch of stuff on the objective. Say I was player B, for instance. I had a lot of units over here, basically swarming the objective, but primarily on my side. I had Arkin, I had a big unit of Mortec, one crawler, or not crawler, harvester, and he had a few lucky rolls, killed Arkin real quick, and basically whittled things down, but took a while to actually hold this objective. On the other side of things, and this is a game-losing thing in retrospect, he was playing Blister Skin, and I had put Mortec Guard essentially right here, and then I had put Catacross and a Harvester. Basically, the Catacross was right there, and the Harvester was right here. And what happened is everything had moved up the board, and as the game went on, he actually was able, and I was able to kind of move up here. He was actually able to show up and use his command abilities to bring a unit of Knights in. So he brought some of the little bird boys, I call them, I forgot what their name is, the Flares. crypt flares.
Crypt flares.
He brought crypt flares in, and I was only able to move. I had a really shitty run move for Catacross, so he was only able to get so far up the table, only a few inches from scoring the objective. But then he was able to knock me back, and I didn't have, say, any bubble wrap behind me. And then he rolled a 9-inch charge, and lo and behold, he got into combat with Catacross with 2 units of flares, and I just wasn't able to kill enough of them to move away in my turn. And I eventually had to, create more or add more resources to my army and kind of go behind. And so he was able to hold his that other objective for several turns, giving him the win. After a while, there's just no way I was going to catch up because he had gotten brutal. That one turn one. Yeah. So
And by the way, listeners, for those of you who are not tuned in to the YouTube video, you are missing out. Mr. Alex Gonzalez here has amazing Telecaster skills. You should see the teleprompter, the arrows, the shapes, the multicolors. He's telling a visual story here. Do yourself a treat. Watch the video. See what's going on.
John, I think that homework for all of us actually is going to be we need to put on our best Madden impression next time we start doing this. I will.
No, the goal to win the game is to get the most points.
So the goal of the game is
you win.
The way you win, the strategy to win the game is you just got to get the most points, and that's how you win the game.
Well, what you really got to do is you take the ball from this end to that end. You hold the objective, and you hold the objective longer than your opponent.
Oh, I love it. I love it. However, let's move on and see what we can do to take a look at our next mission here, which is Scorched Earth. And this might be the final one of the night.
This is not Scorched Earth.
No, this is not. This is Scorched Earth. That's what we're talking about here. We've gone through all 18 missions in previous episodes. So if you guys need to know a full breakdown on how to score the objectives, definitely listen in on some of our previous episodes. But
and we'll be doing, sorry, I don't know if we said this at the beginning, Alex. We are going to go through a couple different episodes where we're going to cover some different missions here. So we're doing 2 tonight, and hopefully next week we'll be doing 2 more, and Mr. Le Boogeyman will be with us for that too.
Exactly. So he will be there for that. So tune in for future episodes where we'll be able to review that. However, Scorched Earth, this is one that is huge, and there are a lot of different takes. I certainly have a lot of takes myself, but John, theoretically, you're Skaven. What are you finding yourself doing if you are playing this one? John, as Garrett mentioned earlier, almost every single objective or mission in the game, he's pretty much deploying the same way every single time, no matter what. But is that how you act in these instances, or what's going on?
Right. So I'm typically a 2-block army when I'm running my larger Skaven army. So it's actually designed to go down in 2 functional setups, but it's capable of 3, so I can divide the army into 3 functional blocks if necessary. So for a mission like this, I might be going with the 3 functional block setup, and I guess I could even bust out the old teleprompter here real quick. So we'll just I liked what Alex was doing with the squares, so we'll give those a try real quick. So probably going to set up, as always, going to set up some nice clan rats right up in front, and I'm typically running 3 blocks of clan rats, so that 3rd block is probably going to be coming in here. Those guys are solidly black, backed by some monks over here, and the monks probably are kind of stringing back. So John, I'm coming back.
Before you continue, John, I do want to mention one of the things about this is, so there is going to be an 18-inch gap between you guys.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Based off the objective placement, you will get 3 inches ahead of your objective. And with an objective scoring zone of 6, it's going to be about that. So your opponent can land turn 1 in here and right here, and you're going to get 3 inches. So I just wanted to mention that real quick as John was doing his deployments.
Okay. So here Garrett comes back with reality here. So we've got our actual 9-inch. So we're 12 inches here. So as we said, we got our 9-inch line. There we go.
Yeah, about that.
There we go. So you like that better?
Yeah, there you go. So because I noticed you were putting some clan rats in front of the objective, and I wanted to make it clear to the viewers that
they're actually going to be looking. Yeah, they're going to be more looking like that with like some monks sitting back here. And again, as we were starting to do, then those guys are going to trail back, because it's important to hold all 4 objectives from the beginning, right?
Yes.
And of course, we might have our, we're anticipating things. So like there's going to be a gnaw hole probably over here and probably a gnaw hole over here. And then I'm taking one maybe either, here, or I would be remiss to put it at the back. So that's pretty unlikely. And then we're going to, put like, the furnace, or excuse me, a bell or something will be sitting there, and a vermin lord. And then of course we've got our other things. So it's going to look something like that. We're holding both objectives. We're trailing back, and we're not necessarily holding the back strong, but I do have stuff, trailing back mostly, so that the 9-inch zones are all protected. Basically, you have a 9-inch, stay away, don't come in anywhere from my backfield. You're protecting the front. Your first turn, if you get first turn, you're of course pushing forward. Push, push, push. Maybe this unit over here is pushing even deeper. I myself am a big believer, go in and blow up the objective the moment you can touch it. So if my opponent has put anything that out here that doesn't have 40 models, or that I can't put more models on them, they're going to lose it. So the odds are that first turn, if I get it, I've just shoved, 40 clan rats. I've ran them here. Ideally, I didn't engage you. I didn't charge you. I'm 3 inches away from you, but probably right there. And boom, blow up both of those objectives. Now I continue to screen my backfield and just keep pushing at the front. But it doesn't matter. As long as I can hold my objectives and I've blown up even one of your objectives, I'm winning this game. And that's what I got to keep pushing. If you blow up one of my objectives, I need to be able to blow up another one. I need to be able to sacrifice. Maybe I want to only hold 3, and I'm going to bait you in to do something here just to split your forces out. That's a bold maneuver, but it can pay off, because if it pulls some units out of your opponent's backfield, then you might be able to go in and take out, 3 of their objectives while they only have 1 there. And that's what it's like. I usually have like 15 colors of pens. It's worth mentioning, when I teach my classes at work, I do it in front of a giant whiteboard. And one of the most critical parts about setting up my class is getting like 12 different colors of pens ready. So that's an important thing. We actually keep a deep supply of whiteboard pens. So my drawing got a little messy there. We'll clean it up by undoing everything. So that's my general thoughts on this one. You got to protect your zones, protect anybody from flanking in on the backfield. You might only hold 3 to bait an opponent in, but you got to choose which opponents you're going to allow to do that. But if you're going to do that, then you need to have a hidden front here. They think they're coming into your backfield. What they don't realize is that you've actually just left a little bait. There's a little, I'm poking out my Vermin Lord Warp Seer. You think you're going to come in and get a juicy character, but you don't notice that there's a unit of Plague Monk sitting on either side of him.
Yeah. Okay.
So, John.
Yes.
Just to hopefully relieve some possible viewer confusion, one thing I want to mention is you cannot burn objectives turn 1.
Well,
first
turn
of all.
2.
Yeah, but so your strategy, just to say that your strategy of push on
John,
burn right away.
I wasn't going to say anything.
If you can get away with it, you got to get away with it. I don't know what you're talking about.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I was going to be like, if you want to be all the way up that far in turn 1, then haha, justice plan.
So this mission is, again, it's going to be highly dependent upon your opponent's force. So John's strategy is very great, assuming your opponent doesn't have movement shenanigans. Because actually, one thing to take it, so John was very true that turn 1, you want to score every objective. And you can do that in various ways. I would say you'd be very surprised what you can do with 1 inch of coherency. Make sure you measure 9 inches right here, 9 inches right here, 9 inches up like this. And then so draw this line, so it'll come up like this, draw that 9-inch line, and then come back like this, and deploy a unit all the way across right here. And then you have a guy right here, he's going to measure 9 inches right here. and deploy another guy over here, he's going to measure 9 inches right here and do the same thing to over here, and you've basically walled off that whole thing. So that's what I'd say is, let me actually do that in a different color. You've walled off that whole section. And that will allow for mitigation of 9-inch deep strikes. To John's point, though, being very aggressive and coming up turn 1, if you can score all of these, even though you don't burn your opponent's objective, turn 1, you can get 5 points, maybe even 6. If you're able to take 2 objectives, you can get a bunch of points and get those early points. Because this is one of those missions where you score every turn, and in theory, both you and your opponent are scoring the same number of objectives. So every single 1 point you get over your opponent, you're going to be ahead. The earlier you can be ahead, the better. This one, although if you do play too aggressively and you don't have a plan to defend your front 2, if you like come over here and attack, and your opponent can then just come like here and take this objective and then burn it, then you're screwed, because then you're down an objective and your opponent gets the extra points. Or if your opponent is able to secure this objective, get it for a turn, double turn, then burn it, that could be really bad.
Well, they're trying to do what you're doing. I mean, that's what that comes down to, right?
Yeah. So this mission, you have to be very careful about spreading your forces. Having some screen units that you can sacrifice to zone out this back for the whole game, this back here, is very important, because if your opponent has any sort of teleport abilities like Bridge of Shadows, or honestly even what's it called, Protection of Nagash, or many of the other,
playing in the realm of Shadow, right?
Yeah, Bridge of Shadows from Realm of Shadows, or there's the Slaves to Darkness teleport ability, Change Host. Any of those, they can easily just drop in, and all they need to do is get within 6 inches of one of these objectives, get more guys than you. They don't even need a 6-inch charge, and they just burn that objective then.
Yeah, that messes with a lot of people when I send units in and just grab the objective, but don't actually charge in. They're like, wait, what? Wait, what?
Exactly. So you have to be very careful with these 2 back objectives. These front objectives are probably going to be very aggressively played by both you and your opponent. And so, honestly, you're going to lose these, most likely, and your opponent's going to lose these. And the key is to just hopefully, like, lose one of them. Let's undo. So lose one objective and just heavily defend like another one, let this one die, and then burn both of these. And so when you're talking about how to deploy, maybe create a very strong defense, like using Mortek Guard or 40 block of skeletons, and not be aggressive with them, or, and then use a more aggressive, fragile unit that might be smaller to push and attack a weak flank, and try to then sweep through and burn both objectives. I think that's, and then using a very skeleton crew to block these back 2 from any deployment shenanigans. Because a strong front right here, your opponent's going to be pushing here, and then he's going to have to either sweep back here and then be very undefended in this area. So having a skeleton crew just be blocking these will save your bacon a ton, because one of the big things about this mission is it has 8 objectives instead of the max what used to be 6. And so you're going to be spread out thin. So relying on your usual synergies to have your entire army be buffed is not going to be a thing anymore, especially since the game is moving towards wholly within strategies. So that what I would say are the big things to look out for. Is you're going to lose your you're going to lose your synergies, you're going to have to sacrifice some skeleton crew in the back, and you're going to just need to focus probably on one of yours and focus on killing 2 of your opponents, or honestly, you could even go for a full, like, try to capture both of these and sacrifice these, because then if you get your opponents, you can then use this to attack this flank right here.
Yep.
And
And of
again,
course, if
keeping
your
this thing
opponent
up
doesn't have any ambush mechanics, you just can just
Oh,
shove
yeah.
everything forward and just
you literally
push.
just have this 6-inch bubble right here. You just control that 6-inch bubble right there and that 6-inch bubble, and then if your opponent doesn't have any movement shenanigans, you just create this wall, and then you just move the wall forward. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. You just move the wall forward like this. You just keep pushing the wall forward until you have a wall.
Okay.
Like that.
So
That's my thoughts.
So there's a lot here, and you guys have all made good points, but you got to talk about what you want to do in certain situations as your army, as your faction. And, with that, you guys are...
Garrett, I've played a lot of factions. I play Khorne, which doesn't have any movement shenanigans, and I play a lot of ambush armies.
I got that. So. And with that, you make a very good point about wanting to cover your back end, right? And, of course, I play an army that is equally back-endy. That was an absolute screw up, so we're going to undo that.
But some kind of back end symbol you were making.
Yeah. But when we look at the actual deployment here, there's, depending on who you fight, there's definitely going to be a lot of different options, and you want to be able to cover your bases. But if you are playing against a deep striker, you don't always have to completely block out their deep strike. In fact, as a Nighthaunt player, I can tell you, when someone starts doing that, when they start moving around and basically like covering their back end like that, that's good for me. That means that the very front line has less models that I have to worry about. Like most armies aren't going to be able to fully cover that big U without, really having a skeletal crew in the front. When I play my missions, if I'm playing my Nighthaunt, for instance, I actually have two kind of fundamental ways I play. If I'm playing, for instance, against a player who does have deep strikers, what I'll do is I will still give them a little bit of space to wiggle, but depending on the terrain, I might say put some chain rasps right here, or maybe do some chain rasps right here, just enough to kind of fuck with a little bit of a small L shape in terms of deep strike. But of course, we don't want them popping up in the middle either. So what I end up doing is I end up putting, if they do have deep strikers, maybe having some units, kind of right here, some elite units just in case, or maybe even a little farther out in the middle, but a little further up too, just to also, cover bases. If I'm fighting against a player who is fully, like, they're not going to be deep striking, they're no nonsense, Fire Slayers is a perfect example, and I just know that they're going to kick my shit in, I play very, very differently. And we had talked about this during one of the roundups to a tournament, to the Forge in 2019, when Jeremy and I played. I basically had a big chunk of my army right here. I had a big chunk of my army right here, and I had some like bubble wrap right here in the middle, or in the front, right near this objective, because I knew he wasn't going to deep strike me. And as the game went on, he didn't move any of his units away from like 18 inches out. He didn't do anything. And I knew that he was going to wait till probably turn 3 and then move his 30 Hearthguard up the board. And so I started moving my units a little farther away. So I started actually moving, my bubble wrap right here, my units right here. I actually ended up moving my bubble wrap just enough to be on that objective. And I actually started splitting the love while I started merging these two big units together. And then I waited till turn 3 or turn 4 rather. And he had started to move some units up the board. He started using, bringing his Hearthguard up in a threatening way. He started to basically be right here. And thankfully he didn't get a double turn on me. So what I did was I busted my nut, and I busted cogs out and ran things up the board in order to or start scoring this objective. And then, I was a little remiss on my command points, but what I did is I ended up being able to teleport units eventually. At that point, he had killed so many of my stuff, I was able to cover on one of his other objectives just my general and a few other 2 units of chain rafts, and then eventually move over to his back objective to end up scoring 3 of them. But really, like in a deep strike heavy army or a night hunt army, you do want to really start playing the game at around turn 3 in this one, because you want to jump on and either hold on if you can, or jump on and then just immediately start denying someone points. What I should have done, though, in that mission, for example, if I were to play that mission in the future against an army that's no bullshit, I would actually instead keep the army all in this kind of middle zone right here to score all the objectives, and really not do much. Have my, maybe if my opponent is dumb enough or overconfident enough rather to move up into my line, then of course engage them with the units that you need to in order to continue to hold the objectives. But with the Realm of Highish and the Aether Court Brooch and all the deep striking, what I'll do is I'll wait and I'll wait and I'll wait, and if they do end up moving up the board, then I'll bust the cogs out. I'll speed up time. I'll move like half of my army and put it wherever I can on his end in order to start screwing with him. Is it going to be, say over here? Maybe. Is it going to be over here? Who knows?
Do you burn his objectives as soon as you grab them?
No, it depends on the game. If it's someone where I know that they're on their turn, they're going to take it back, then yeah, absolutely take it. But if it's against someone where I just know that they're not going to take it back, I'll hold it for a little while.
I mean, like if you put 40 chain rafts, if you're able to take one of their objectives by putting 40 chain rafts on it, you're like, fuck it, he's not going to be able to take this from me. I'll hold it for a turn. Like I could even survive a double turn with 40 chain rafts on here.
Yeah.
And then you'll just hold it, because every turn you hold it, you get even more points. So
exactly. And as a counter to this, then with my OBR army, I play very differently. So, I would probably put, a small unit of chain rafts right here. Actually, I would put them just flat out on the objective, quite frankly. And then I would put, maybe a hero as that longer triangle in the top left, or longer rectangle rather. And then probably, kind of a heavy unit right here. But what I've been doing lately, especially with the Catacrosian Deathglaive, is I've essentially been, putting, say, a big unit of Mortec and a Harvester right here, kind of up in the front to hold, one objective solidly. Maybe put it out so that it can kind of help out to the back objective if there's deep strikers. But then what I do is I put this Catacrosian Deathglaive basically right there, like on the line. And usually it's just a little bit off from the objective, but enough to score it so that I know that something behind it can end up coming through. And the reason why I say that is because earlier, Garrett, you had mentioned to John that this one, you're only 18 inches away from your opponent. So with the Catacrosian Deathglaive, I would, depending on if I get first turn or second turn, or if my opponent knows what's going to happen and deploys a lot more conservatively and not on the front line, my stalkers are going to have a 6-inch move normally, plus 3 inches. Then I'll use hunt and kill, so they'll reroll failed charges, and then and with the 6-inch additional move before the first battle round. So that's quite a bit. That's going to be
15 inches.
That's 15 inches with a rerollable charge, and they're going to be possibly 3 inches away from their opponent. You add another 3 inches there, and it's 18 inches for the.
15 is with the extra 3. It's 9 plus 6 is 15.
No, that's correct. What I mean to say is it's going to be 18 inches with the Harbingers instead.
Oh yeah.
And they have fly, so they can move over.
And
walls,
they charge 3d6.
And they charge 3d6 inches. So you have an incredible threat zone with the Catacrosian Deathglaive to even get to the back end of his unit. So it's an incredibly threatening thing. So that's why I would put it in a way so that I can either go straight up the board and go like a lawnmower, or even hit the side that they might not be expecting me to do. So, and that's really, not a lot of armies will have those very, very fast units. I mean, first things that come to mind are, Night Haunt or the Catacrosian Deathglaive, or probably Lumineth when they come around. But Slaanesh is a great example of someone who can speed up the army that can speed up the table like that, and Khorne on occasion as well. There's a lot of good benefits. Oh, of course, Deepkin actually would excel at this as well. So That's just my thought process here, especially when we talk a lot about this type of mission, being able to hold those front objectives. And especially in this particular matchup, if I were to bring, say, my typical OBR list lately, you would hit these objectives. And again, if you know that you're going to get wiped out on the objective, let's say the Catacrosian Deathglaive comes right over here and just completely annihilates the units here. That's only 8 models on that objective now, or maybe even less if they took some casualties.
Yeah, you just have to put 9 models, just run up, don't even bother charging, take it back.
Well, what I mean to say is, say my opponent then has a unit like, say, 40 Clan Rats and 3 Storm Fiends, right here. I know that they can come over and just take that objective from me, no matter what. And they'll be able to bar me down and probably slowly whittle away at the Deathglaive. So I would steal that objective immediately, and now they have a flank that they don't have to, that they don't necessarily have to get to. So they're probably going to start putting more attention over here as my Mortec Guard move forward, which means that in a way, and I really hope our listeners check out the video, because then the objective that's in this quadrant is free and clear for the most part, unless they have, say, a Nahul net nearby and they jump over. And that's just Skaven in particular. But in, some other armies, if I were to kind of bait and switch in this way, won't even have the ability to get to that objective realistically without having to deal with me being in there on another flank of theirs in just a turn.
That's very nice. Very tricky. Very solid, Alex. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the thought processes here. It's really important to make sure that we, share our findings. Are there any other...
Well, similar to the last one, terrain can make a huge deal. Like, God forbid you got a big ass, that's the line, a big ass like terrain feature right here that can prevent stuff like this pushing up.
Or with the Catacrosian, with the
you can ignore terrain, but I'm just saying, like, like Clan Rats, like John's Clan Rats wouldn't be able to just push right on. He's having to do this. Yep. And go around the objective. So terrain can make huge changes to your deployment, creating bottlenecks. Like things like terrain right there can create a bottleneck. Terrain on objectives or near objectives can cause you to not be able to screen objectives as much as you would want. So that's another thing to watch out for, is how the terrain will affect your deployment. Because you're I mean, as every single one of us has said, whether as Alex, even you're still going to be spread out no matter what. Like Alex had a bunch of dudes over here and a bunch of dudes over here, and if you had a big piece of terrain separating that, he's kind of split half either way. So this mission will split your army, similar to the last one, merely because there's 8 objectives to score, and you're hitting so many flanks and defending so many flanks.
Exactly, which proves the point that you want to be able to have the ability to have an army that can be split up without you losing effectiveness.
Yeah, like my current cities list is so giant death ball-y, and it would struggle on this mission because it's like outside of my like giant death ball of doom, it would basically have one big unit that would be like right here, and I'd have like a skeleton crew back here, and then that's all I really got. And so it would be it'd be very hard to work this mission from all the angles from the person who like Nighthawk could just teleport and screw over a lot of things. So
yeah, no, I see that. That's, again, there's so many different perspectives here, and without having terrain, there's only so much we can do. And I now have the judgmental eyes of Vincent Morgado upon me right now, geez. Which probably means that we have to wrap things up. We weren't able to get to all the missions we had, but hey, we're all on quarantine, and we'll be able to tell you guys a little bit more about, Star Strike and Places of Arcane Power and how we might be able to best, think about our deployments in those missions next week instead. And of course, we'll probably have the French Overlord to help us out here.
Yep. In fact, for just a matter of fact, our original plan was to do 12 of the missions. We'll see if we get through 12, but we're probably doing a
4.
Yeah, we're probably doing a 3-week series as it sits. So we'll see how it goes.
Likely it is going to be 3 weeks for sure. In the meantime, though, as John had mentioned and as Garrett had mentioned, a lot of our listeners, you guys are going to be able to take a lot of this and work with it. But a lot of the visuals in this latter half of the episode, you really will need to see the actual recording of the episode. Plus, you'll see my green screen fall, which was great, real fun. So if you guys want to, you can definitely check out at Wide World Gaming on YouTube and give us a subscribe, a like. Tell us what you might want to see, especially visually, or even what you want to see as a background for us, as we're continuing with this. John,
send me custom backgrounds.
There you go. And John, of course, you are also sharing these recordings as well. What's your handle on YouTube?
On YouTube, it is my channel is Zez2Ku on YouTube.
Perfect. And maybe eventually, when we all got our computers up and running, or rather, I have my computers up and running, we'll be able to get the C-SPAN of tabletop gaming, tabletop simulator going.
As long as we can keep Hispanic too,
Yeah. Or just number 8, the Ocho.
The Ocho. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll get the Schwartz in here with us, and anything's possible.
Wonderful.
Right.
Garrett, you got anything to plug?
Stay safe, people. Stay inside.
Wash your fucking hands. Great.
Wash your fucking hands.
You guys have a good night.
Night, everyone.